Yes. Linda has an idea for a backdrop. Good evening, everyone. This is the Metaphysical Bible Hangout, and I am Reverend Sherri James. I didn't hear the M. Sherri James. Okay, I can get rid of this. Can open this. Give everybody a few minutes to get situated. Okay. All right, that's been fixed. Great. I do need a background. I do. I'm looking at it on the watch page and it's not cute. Hey there. All right. Olga, good to see you. The link is there for anybody that wants to come and sit in live. Okay, I'm going to close that down. I don't need that. Okay. Can you guys see me good? I feel like I'm dark. Like I need to move my bag over. You guys can see fine? Okay. All right. This is going to be a great session. It's been a great day already. So I'm just taking a few minutes to give people a chance to get situated, and then we will dive into this conversation. Hey Phyllis, hey Joe, hey Eves. Really excited for tonight's conversation because this is, along with just rethinking Judas, coming at the resurrection in a different way, is awesome. That's all I can say. It's an awesome experience. And my intention for this evening is one, to encourage you to think and to choose intentionally your spirituality. Not at all do you ever have to accept anything that I'm saying verbatim. I don't expect you to, but I do ask that you reach and dig into this information for yourself and decide what is true for you. Yeah, it is dark, isn't it? I don't know what to do about the camera. I think it is what it is. Oh, you know what? I do have a camera thing, but I think that's just effects.
You think if you could move over from the window?
From the window? Yeah, maybe. Let me turn this.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, that's a little bit better. That's a lot better, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right, so we're working from chapter 16, which starts on page, I think, 200, 199, the Great Demonstration. And get that out of the way. And this chapter focuses on the resurrection. So we're going to be talking about a new way to look at the resurrection. And with that, I will pull the PowerPoint and dig in. Hang on, there's a two-step process to getting the right slide up. So the question I have for you tonight is, are you open to seeing the resurrection in a new light? Are you open to seeing the resurrection in a new light? And to stretch beyond where you have stretched before, to think beyond where you have thought before as far as the resurrection is concerned. I find that often in New Thought, we tend not to look at the things that are challenging as far as the belief system for New Thought, and particularly because nothing is dogmatic. So if anything doesn't fit you, it's like, hey, I don't want to think about it, so don't think about it. But I think some of these concepts are worth thinking about, because if you don't intentionally replace them, then you operate on the one that you've been given. Even though you've changed your belief system, if you don't intentionally change a particular belief, it can still be driving how you do anything. And so I want to give you a way to think about the resurrection from a new thought perspective. I want to start to explore some different ways to understand the resurrection. So that's the purpose of tonight. I've got a few announcements, opening prayer. We're going to talk about why the power within you matters. We're going to talk about the fact that something, we don't know what, but something happened 2,000 years ago. And then we're going to talk about what it means to operate in a new spiritual dimension. Q&A. And of course, I always like it when you ask and make comments throughout, because it helps to just guide the conversation. And so that I know that I am giving at the point of your receiving. It helps me when you ask any question. So please do. Why the Bible Hangout, especially because tonight and probably next week will be the same. Tonight it has been, well, today just in general. So I'm in the middle of preparing for my ordination and installation, which is going to be like an amazing party. And so I'm literally running all over town, returning stuff, buying stuff, ordering this, ordering that. And there's so many moving parts. But it is important to me to be here because I love doing this. This is, if I weren't ordained or anything, I would just do this because that satisfies me, which is to share with you spiritual principles that have made a difference in my life. Next Thursday is my literal birthday. Like, my birthday is the 25th, and same thing. I will be right here, 7:00, because I love it that much. And it's worth it to me to contribute to you in that way. And so that's why it's every week, and that's why it's without fail. And I adjust my schedule if I'm traveling because it means that much to me, and because I want to give that to you. It is not free to produce this. It does cost. And so I ask that if this has been a blessing to you, if you would consider being a blessing to my team as far as being able to pull it off. And you can make a gift right at revsherri.com. And I thank you in advance. Any gift of any size makes a difference. And I bless you for whatever you decide to share and however you decide to share. And thank you. This Sunday, I will be ordained and installed as the senior minister for Understanding Principles Church. It is an exciting day because there are 3 ordinand candidates. Reverend Leela Harris is one of them. She has a center in Los Angeles called the Center of Renewal. Reverend Sherri Thompson will be ordained, and then I will install her as my assistant minister. And Angela Jones and Tommy Milner will be licensed as teachers within the Universal Foundation for Better Living. So we've got a huge weekend coming up. My mom gets in town. My dad gets in town. It's just going to be an awesome, awesome time. So exciting. And everybody is working and behind the scenes to make this happen. And I want to tell you, the team that we have here at Up Church is second to none. I'm so impressed and proud and grateful for everyone for the way that people are showing up. If you're in the Los Angeles area, come on and join us, 1:00. There will be a reception to follow in the fellowship hall. And I think Doolan's is our caterer for this event. The way that this series works is that there's always a blog and a blog post in the Bible Hangout, and the blog today is on another look at Jesus's crucifixion and resurrection, and of course tonight we're in the Bible Hangout, and so that's the structure for how this series has worked. Panorama of Truth is coming August 9th through the 13th. I want to let you know that May 31st is the deadline for submitting your money for the conference. And so if you are interested in getting a room, your monies need to be paid to the UFBL by May 31st. You can also make your payment through Up Church, and we will send a check on your behalf to UFBL. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but if you want to work with a group that you can do it through us. And we will be in sunny Montego Bay. And they announced a few of the speakers, but they have Reverend Ed Bacon. And I'm so excited because he is someone that I think is phenomenal. I think he's from All Saints Pasadena out here in California. So he actually pastors a church that I've been wanting to visit. So it'll be great to hear him speak. And then there's another woman whose name I cannot recall right now, who is also one of our speakers. So it's going to be a phenomenal conference. The scripture for this series is: once Jesus was asked by the Pharisees when the kingdom of God was coming. And he answered, the kingdom of God is not coming with things that can be observed, nor will they say, look, here it is, or there it is. For in fact, the kingdom of God is within you. And that's Luke 17, 20 and 21. And so if you could just take a moment to just relax. And we want to be here now. Just be in this space and just really allow the presence and the power of God to flow in, through, and as us. And to recognize that the choice that we have made to set apart this time is a signal to the universe that we are ready for the greater part, that we are reaching for the higher calling, that we are stretching to create an opening in our hearts for something greater and something better. And so we just ask, God, that you come up through us, to us, with everything that we need to know, all the information that we need to take in, make it clear to us. I thank you so much, Father, for just organizing this lesson. You know, the work that has gone into preparing it, but I just ask that you organize it so that it is a blessing to the people that are listening to it. And I just bless this conversation. I give thanks for it, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful for it. In the name and through the power that is in the name of Christ Jesus, it is so, and so it is. So why the power within you matters? Again, we see this card every week. And the question that I have for you and for me, if all things are possible for those who love Christ, then why do our lives look the way they do? What are we not doing with the power within that keeps us playing life small? Now, you may say, Reverend Sherri, I don't play life small. Okay. Alita asks, is Ed Bacon a priest? No, I think he's a rector, because I think All Saints is Catholic, or maybe it's Episcopal, but I don't think he's a priest. But honestly, I don't know. I'd actually have to investigate. I'm not sure. But just back to the question, if all things are possible for those who love Christ, then why do our lives look the way that they do? And only you can be the judge of that. And this is not to condemn, but just to ask a question. That living life out loud, living the fullest life that we can live, and we have the power within ourselves to do that. And we say that we love Christ. And what we're going to get to is what it really means to love Christ. That's where we're going in this lesson. But we say that we love Christ. Then why do our lives look the way that they do? What are we not doing with the power within that keeps us playing life small? When I was in Wisconsin, I asked the question, and it's the question I ask of myself, that, you know, when you think about the things that we're proud of in this life, that if you are in a prestigious organization, if you have a certain promotion, if you whatever those things are, right? Though, and let's say that those are some of the things that you've accomplished in life, and you think about the level of pride that people have in the things of this world, and not knocking it, but I just want to give you a way to frame it. And I said, what would really happen? Like, what would our lives look like if we were really proud of the fact that we are emanations of the divine, that we really understood that God was our parent? Like Reverend Della would say, you know, I would be rubbernecking. If culturally you may not know what that means, but you know, growing up, if you want to tell somebody off, you get to rubbernecking, you know, moving your head like, see, I told you. Like, if you really took God to be your parent, how would you carry yourself? What would your life look like? And you had an understanding of God, that God can do all things, that God holds all things in his hand, that there is not one, that God can do anything but fail. right? And you're the child of God, which means then you can do anything but fail. How would you live life? And so that the question then extends then that this power within me, that if through loving this power within me, if through falling in love with the Christ that indwells me, all things are possible, then what's going on? Is it that we don't really love? Or is there something else? Like what's happening that we are not living life out loud, that we're not doing life at the highest level? Right? What's going on? And I think that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. And again, not judging by worldly standards. Only you can decide whether or not you're living life full out. That's an internal decision. I don't have the ability to look at your life and say, oh, Ray, you're not living full out. It's like, who are you to decide whether or not I'm living full out? This is an internal conversation that you have to have with yourself. Are you doing life at the level at which you want to do it? Not which you can do it, but what that you want to do it, in terms of your love life, in terms of your health, in terms of your finances, in terms of your friendships, in terms of the things that matter to you. This is an internal question. No one can answer this question for you. Are you doing life at the level that suits who you and how you want to think about yourself? And if you're not, then what gives? If you're not, then what gives? And what are you going to do about it? And that's where we are tonight. We've reached the point where it's about rubber meeting the road. Now, I don't know who FTX is, but they said fearlessly. So yes, I agree with you 100% fearlessly. But you get what I'm saying, that what's happening if we've got the power to shape the moon, the stars, the earth, literally, the way that we want it, but we're not doing that for ourselves. So here's the thing. Something happened 2,000 years ago. Even if you are somebody who says, you know what, I am New Thought, I don't really buy this whole resurrection conversation, this whole, follow Jesus in the regeneration process. And a lot of people are like that. They are upset with Fillmore, with his insistence that we can live eternally in the body. And so a lot of folks have just kind of moved away from that idea. And I think it's fair to say that whether or not you believe in the resurrection, that we can probably agree that something happened. If nothing else, that something that happened changed everything, including the way that we talk about time, which is one of our fundamental measurements of life. It changed. Think about that. Whatever it was that happened, it changed the dating system such that we talk about the time before Jesus lived on earth and the time after Jesus lived on earth. We call it before Christ, and then we call it Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. More than 2,000 years have passed, and we are still talking about that something. So whatever it was that happened, it's powerful enough to keep the conversation going for centuries. And the thing is that we actually don't know what happened. I know that there are people who are traditional in their theological perspective who will tell you, oh, no, I know exactly what happened, right? But no, you don't. And I'll tell you why. Because there are so many discrepancies in our Bible that there is no way to say, and we don't have any original copies. There's no way to say definitively that this happened. So there's no way to say that the stories as they were recorded happened the way that they happened. I heard a minister speak several years ago, and not several years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was in seminary. And one of the things that he said is that, the disciples held their story and they kept it until they went to the grave, and they never changed their story. And that was the theological reasoning for why you could believe the story as it's recorded. And it's So, just a little bit of the problem with that explanation is that it's a story. It's a story, meaning someone was writing it and making a point. And yes, in the story, the main characters never changed their story. But it would be like going to see Wonder Woman, and at the end of the movie, she decides, you know what? I don't fight crime, I commit crime. I mean, it's the story. The character has to fulfill a particular destiny in the story. I know that might be sacrilegious to some of y'all, but just go with me here. What I'm trying to say is that we don't have originals of any of these texts. So it is an article of faith that what the Bible says is what is on that page. What it really says is it represents the agreement between a group of primarily men who are looking at the earliest copies of the copies of the copies that we have, all of which disagree on some level, some in minor ways, some in major ways that it would actually change doctrine, and deciding what the text says. Bart Ehrman asked the question, if God had the wherewithal to create the miracle of creating the Bible, then why didn't he have the wherewithal to create the miracle of preserving the Bible? It's just, it's kind of like, what gives? So we don't have a way to know that what the text says is what is written on the page. Besides the fact then, as Dr. Rocco Errico will tell us, that exaggeration was a element in Near Eastern culture, and the Bible is a Near Eastern document. In the West, we would call that exaggeration or lying. That it wasn't about trying to tell you a story the way that it happened, but it was about communicating a feeling and energy about the story. And so if I needed to tell you that it was 5,000 people that got fed, then 5,000 people got fed. So there's no way to verify the accuracy, the historical accuracy of these stories. But what we can say, and I think this is the key point, is that something happened that shifted the cultural, the collective consciousness of the planet, such that we count the time after that moment as different than the time before that moment. And so what we want to look at today is, what was that? We don't know what it is, but what was that? Because that is worth our attention. That is worth having a real conversation about. And so the question that I'm asking is that, is there an explanation beyond the traditional take, which is namely the martyrdom tradition, which is that Jesus came, he lived, he died for our sins, was crucified and died for our sins. Is there an explanation beyond the traditional take on the crucifixion and resurrection that can empower us in a greater way? Because we've been given this standard way to think about whatever that something is, right? But is there another way to think about it that goes beyond what we've been told, and that might hold a level of empowerment that exceeds what we can now imagine? And so I want to talk about a new spiritual dimension. I'm going to give you 6 points on this new spiritual dimension. And the first thing I want to talk about is thinking in this new spiritual dimension. Thinking in this new spiritual dimension. Part of what makes this new spiritual dimension challenging and thinking in it is that we have a three-dimensional mind. And so something like the resurrection just does not make sense to a three-dimensional mind. And so you literally have to go to the place where you say, I either accept this story on faith or I deny it. But there's no way to reconcile it in with a three-dimensional worldview. And so people will argue, but what they're arguing for is that I agree that this story happened, and somebody else is saying this is BS, and no, it doesn't. And because there's so many things like this in religion that, I just reject all of them. that and I'm going to choose atheism as if that's not a religion. But we overreach when we consider Jesus's last moments in a corporeal body according to the laws of our physical universe. Spiritual things must be spiritually discerned. So the problem really isn't whether we accept the resurrection or not. Is how are we looking at this thing? How are we thinking about it? And are we thinking in 3 dimensions? He uses this example, and I thought it was so powerful. He said you wouldn't expect to understand calculus until you had at least learned to add 2 plus 2 and multiply 3 times 3. And so calculus looks hard when you haven't mastered basic addition or multiplication. And perhaps what we're looking at with the resurrection is really about spiritual law working at a much higher level of consciousness than we now operate. Maybe what we're seeing is that we are the caterpillar looking at the butterfly, calling it a miracle. Maybe we are the caterpillar looking at the butterfly, calling it a miracle, not knowing that our destiny is to become the butterfly. And so instead of continuing the process of metamorphosis from the caterpillar into the butterfly, we stay caterpillars and worship the butterfly. I hope you're hearing this. I hope you're hearing this, and I really do hope that it's landing, that we trade our ability to become all that we could be by the way that we view the world. I got a couple of comments. Olga says that's true. Folks don't want to change till it's on their front door. Linda says that's why it's called translation. Yes. Phyllis says we have to reprogram ourselves to our true identity to start living in that power of our true self. Yes. He said, FTX says, let's not use the terms lying or exaggeration. How about euphemism or hyperbole? Yes, I like those terms. Olga said that's true. And it's a daily moment by moment of monitoring one's thoughts. Yeah. Our faith has been built on believing the resurrection happened. And you know that there are people that if they heard what I'm saying right now, they would fall out and leave all kind of hateful comments on the YouTube video. But our faith has been built on believing the resurrection happened. But maybe it's not about whether it happened. We don't have any way to prove the historical accuracy of these stories. Just because the stories appear in 4 Gospels does not mean that the story is historically accurate. We just don't have that. Right? So, but maybe it's not about whether it happened, but about how we should consider this event regardless of its historical accuracy, because we're still talking about it. So whatever happened, something happened. And that something was great enough that this conversation is still happening today. Joe says, I'm hearing it, but it's still hard to think I'll be a butterfly. I know, and I hear you, and I get it. And that is the work. It's, mind you, I was a math person. I was a math person, right? So for me, calculus was a fun. So I'll say that. And I used to dream of equations. That's a whole other nerd conversation we could have another time. But I would literally, like, if there was a problem that I would have, I would dream the solution to the problem. In fact, one of the worst times that happened was that it was after an exam, and I had done the exam, and I dreamt the right answer, and it was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Abraham says we look so long at what is and never get to what can be, and that's exactly it. That Jesus representing the butterfly, us representing the caterpillar, looking at the butterfly, looking at our potential, looking at who we can become, and we stay caterpillars. We refuse to go through the metamorphosis process. We stop eating the things that would cause the metamorphosis process, which is the spiritual food, the spiritual development, and we stay right where we are believing that, well, I don't know what we believe. That just is crazy to me that we wouldn't reach for the greater part. And maybe this thing about the resurrection is not about whether it happened. It's like, let that argument die in your heart. Let it just go away. And begin to say, what am I supposed to get out of it? What's proven here by this experience? What am I supposed to notice beyond just whether or not it happened? What if it was not an article of my faith that it happened, but it was an article of my faith of what it proves about me? Do you get what? Like, it's a shift. There's a shift that happens when you stop trying to fight about whether or not the things in the Bible happen, and you begin to live into, if it's here, if some mind could conceive it, right? If some mind could, whether the story is historically accurate or not, the fact that a mind could conceive it means that it is possible. That just that the same way that flight was possible before flight, back up. Flight was possible before flight became possible, but flight was imagined before it became possible, but it took a consciousness to bring it through. Then perhaps the fact that it's on the paper, that a mind imagined it, means that then it can be true. It doesn't look true. It look possible for us right now because we're whirling around as a caterpillar. We're not, the law of aerodynamics works for whoever can take advantage of it. The law of aerodynamics is available to the caterpillar, but in its current form, it can't take advantage of it. When it finally moves into the form of the butterfly, it can take advantage of a spiritual law that was always there. And so it is with us, that there are higher laws that as we continue along the food chain, spiritual food chain, as we continue to do the work, to change, to grow, to stretch, they become available to us. And so, yes, today it looks impossible. But what if you kept doing the work? What might life look like if you kept doing the work? Quintina says, change your mind as to how we see things. It is going deeper and looking at the possibilities which are within. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The second thing is about seeing in a new spiritual dimension. Seeing in a new spiritual dimension. So to be born again is this really interesting phenomenon, right? Because when we're born again, nothing really happens to us in the three-dimensional world, right? And that's probably what makes it so hard to talk about it with your mama and your daddy, because it's like, wait, you the same. You still work the same job, you got the same car, you're still married to the same person, and to the outer eye, you look the same, right? But you're not the same. As you grow in your spiritual awakening, the way you see the world continues to change until one day you wake up and the people you believed were closest to you seem the farthest away. You still love them. They still love you, but you are different because you see differently. And here's where people stop. They begin the metamorphosis process. They begin to see the difference in who they are, and they stop. Linda says, Michelangelo prototype machines we copied from today, the helicopter, the submarine. Yep. I had a wonderful experience. I was riding with Reverend Mary. Reverend Mary used to drive like a bat out of hell. So she would launch out into traffic. It's a wonder I'm here. Okay. She was as adept as she was at spirituality, she was that unadept at driving. But I remember riding with her and talking about the process of becoming a spiritual master. And one of the things that she said was that it can be a lonely path, because you reach a point beyond which most people won't go. You reach a point beyond which most people won't go. And one of the questions that I always ask when I was really just starting out in this process is, okay, God, you gave you gave me the charge of taking care of people, and I'm willing to do that. But who's going to take care of me? Who do I get to walk with? Because I'm not interested in the lonely route. That's not cool for me. And there's this point where you really do, you get to the place where the things that you care about are just not the things that other people care about. It's just not. It's the things that you want to read. Folks are just not interested in reading those things. That you begin to lose your taste for the things of the world. And not that you become an ascetic, or not that you eschew wealth and all of that, but you lose your taste for those kinds of things. And so it becomes challenging to then relate to the people that are closest to you. Now, what I'm learning is that you come back around full circle, but there's a point at which you are not at full circle. You're on the opposite side of the circle. And it's at that point that most people say, this price is too high. This price is too high. And the thing is that if you are going to follow the Christ, it's going to cost you everything. I don't know how to tell you that any different. I don't know how to sugarcoat it, make it pretty for you. It's going to cost. Linda called it the road less traveled. Yeah, the road, that's exactly it. And the thing that you have to then trust is that you will be given traveling companions, that you will not have to travel this road alone. But what starts to happen is you start to see the world differently. And as you see the world differently, you experience the world differently. Because you're experiencing the world now based on the way that you see it. But as you begin to get this macro view, right? As you begin to view the world from the lens of the emerging spiritual master, it just changes. When I was preparing this, the image that came to mind was of a water drop, or a drop of water, as a drop of water and the ocean, that most people are walking around like drops of water, and they're operating like drops of water. And the thing about a drop of water is that a drop of water can be wiped up, right? If you get a drop of water on you, all you need is a good napkin and you can get wiped up. And that's really what happens to a lot of people in life. They just get wiped up by life. But when that drop of water merges with its source being the ocean, it then can do whatever it chooses to do. It can take down mountains. It can level cities. It can wear away rock that seemed at first to be immovable. It can feed a nation. I mean, when the drop merges back into the source, it can do all things. But it's a seeing thing, because if the drop of water does not see itself as part of and connected to the ocean, then it operates like a drop of water. It operates like something that can just be wiped up by the nearest napkin. But when the water operates from the vantage point of, I am connected to the ocean, I'm connected to the thing that can wear down or take care of or support anything, then I can't be wiped up, because all I have to do is recede into my source. And so there's a seeing that happens when we're talking about being in this new spiritual dimension. No, the physical world doesn't necessarily change, at least not at the beginning. But there is a point at which you begin to see things differently. You begin to look at life in a new dimension. And what I'm suggesting to you is that for Jesus to move through the cross, through the resurrection, that the seeing had to change. How he saw the world had to shift. And I think that if you study the parables and you really begin to get into the metaphysics of the parables, you'll begin to discern what some of that what that looked like, what, you know, how that how his thinking differed. And so this is the work that we have to do. Quintina says, and some people will stop you, as you stated, when they get to that point. We sometimes are afraid of losing people. Yes, it's comfortable, but it's familiar. Yes. Andrea says, perfect analogy. Whereas the drop merging into the ocean as opposed to existing separately from it. Perfect. Yes, folk love Olga. Yes, folk love comfort and will not go through the next door. Yes. And it's not easy. You know, ideally, you find a good spiritual community, a safe space to grow, right? Because that's really what you need, a safe space. As you begin to discover who you are, there are things that get confirmed for you in spirit before they get confirmed for other people in the flesh. And so that you don't look crazy, you know, you need a group that you can work with, who can support you through this, who can be your team member through this process, because your sight begins to change. It just begins to look different. And over time, incrementally, your outer world begins to change. But it's the thing that scares people, and so most people stop. Traveling in a new spiritual dimension. Now, I'm gonna tell you something. This is the last page in the chapter. I think it's page 210, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. For most Christians, they listen to a sermon on the resurrection on Easter, and nothing changes for them. Nothing changes. He writes, if you go to page 209, hold on, 209, he says, the usual celebration of Easter, spending an hour hearing about the exciting event of 2,000 years ago, is much like contemplating for one day the mysteries of calculus without ever having conditioned ourselves to understand the basic 2 plus 2. We take out our calculus book and we read it over with no real comprehension, and we say, oh, it is so beautiful. Then we return to the high place on the bookshelf where it will remain for another year, and we tell ourselves that it was a wonderful experience to think about it for a day. I went this year. I got an opportunity to go to Saddleback, and they had a remarkable church service, and people are crying. And this is not to mock anything that anybody's doing, but I want to make a point here. So hear what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying, because you can dial into God at any level. But people are crying. You know, it's a very emotional experience. But what is it inciting you to do? I probably shouldn't have said it that way, because I'm a fan of the work that they do and the things that they're doing at Saddleback. So this is not a criticism of them. This is a challenge to us to grow, to stretch, right? This is a challenge for us to reach out and go beyond where we are. And so with the celebration of Easter, that we celebrate or highlight the suffering. And when people tell these, if you think about the Passion of the Christ, you know, that story is a gut-wrenching story to watch, because it is all about the suffering, right? And it's the pageantry at its highest degree, and you're watching the cattails whip into his back, and you know, it's gruesome. And so there's all this emphasis on this, right? But it's just like how, you know, but you think about it once a year, and you relive the drama of it once a year. And then you go back to your regular life, and nothing changes. Nothing changes. And so the work that we have is, okay, when you're traveling into this new spiritual dimension, the only way through this new spirit, the only way to travel is to keep moving. If you go on a trip and you catch a plane, and the plane lands, and you're in your destination, and now it's time to get back on the plane and go back home, and you don't get back on the plane, the traveling has stopped. You have now immigrated to wherever it is that you've moved to. You've stopped the moving forward process. So there's work to be done that keeps you moving forward, that keeps you pushing, that keeps you going. And you must do that work. You must make that your priority. And I think it's high time to stop looking at the crucifixion and doing nothing, looking at the resurrection and doing nothing. And so, what I am suggesting is don't be afraid to come up a little higher. Don't be afraid to move away from the familiar. You will be given new traveling companions. I'm a witness to that. And so do not shy away from reaching for the greater part. Yes, it will be different. It'll be a new normal. But the fruit of the Spirit is peace, love, joy, happiness, kindness, compassion. That all the things of the Spirit come with following the Spirit. And so you can trust it. You can trust the work that it takes to move beyond where you are. And you don't have to be afraid. Understanding the resurrection in a new spiritual dimension. And so I go back to this math thing because it just really hit me, one, as a math person and as someone who loved calculus, that when you cannot do basic math, calculus looks hard. When you cannot do basic math, calculus looks just flat out impossible. If you are struggling with 2 plus 2, right? If that's your hang up, is 2 plus 2, then seeing an equation that that doesn't have numbers it would challenge me. If you're looking at an equation that has no numbers, and it's just all letters, a series of letters and commas and parentheses, and you got the addition and subtract. There's only 4 basic functions, right? Which is the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, right? But it's attached to letters, and that's like, what the? Are you kidding me? And so, what I'm saying is that, yeah, it looks hard. Absolutely, it looks impossible. And so the resurrection looks impossible when you still struggle with the basics of life. When you still dealing with the mundane aspects of life, moving beyond death to your own resurrection it's like, girl, why are you even talking to me about that? But what I want you to know is that does not mean that it cannot be done. With the resurrection, Jesus proved the divinity of humankind. He proved that life neither begins nor ends in the body. And so the keynote of the great demonstration of Easter is that you are divine. No matter what you have thought of yourself, no matter what you have done in your life or with it, or no matter how limited your experience has seemed to be, you are divine. And the divinity of you is that of you that is eternal, ageless, deathless, whole, and complete. And so in this new spiritual dimension, Jesus' resurrection is not about the impossible becoming possible. It actually proves what you and I can do right now. Don't be swayed by the seeming impossibility of it. Keep your head down and do the spiritual work in front of you today. So you may be at the place of 2 plus 2 as far as life is concerned. I may be at the place of 2 plus 2. I'm not putting myself on some pedestal. We may be at the place where 2 plus 2 is where we are as far as life is concerned. But that does not mean that the resurrection, right, does not mean that living on the higher level is impossible for us. But what happens is that we won't do the work that we need to do right now. Can you be trusted to show up every day in meditation? Can you move beyond just praying for your immediate needs and begin to pray for the flow of spirit through you into your divine call? I mean, I said this to someone that, when you come upon a problem, the problem is really for you to prove who you are, right? And every problem is really an opportunity for you to show up for life differently. That when you meet something and it's just wearing you down, and you're like, I am so tired of this. Whatever it is, right? I'm just tired of it. I'm ready for it to be done. That maybe, just maybe, it is about saying, how do I want to be better? after coming through this experience? What skill am I going to improve through this? You can decide that. You don't have to wait for hindsight and look back and say, oh, I learned X, Y, and Z. You can decide today what it is that you want to learn. I had a experience. It didn't actually happen, meaning the what I thought was going to happen. But I thought I was going to move Jordan's school. It was like some stuff that was happening, and it looked like a bunch of logistical things that I was going to have to figure out. And it looked like it was just going to create a big old kerfuffle. And I told a friend of mine, I said, I want to come through this experience like the model spiritual, like a model spiritual citizen. That I don't want to lose my peace while I'm figuring out the logistics of, do I move his school? Do I keep him where he is? Because I really like where he is, and then what do I do about being in the office every day? And I was like working with all this stuff. And I said, what I want to do differently this time, while all of this seeming chaos is happening, is I want to come through this experience, and I just want to be better at keeping my spiritual poise. I want to be better at keeping my spiritual poise. And I'm saying that you can do that through where you are right now. Because that's the 2 + 2. That's the 3 × 3. As far as life is concerned, it is the showing up better than you've shown up before for the things that are your challenges to handle today. You will get to the resurrection when it's your time to be at the resurrection. When it's your turn to go through the cross, trust me, there's a cross in life waiting for you. Can you right now just show up better than you've shown up before for the things that are challenges on your plate? Whatever it is that's got your attention, that is tossing you to and fro, can you stop letting it toss you to and fro? Every time it shows up, you're like, I'm so tired of this, right? Can you lose that reaction and just show up without the storytelling that caused you to make that reaction? This is what the Jesus, when he raised his body, it wasn't the first body he raised. At least as far as the story is concerned, Lazarus was his practice run. Jairus' daughter was his practice run. The daughter of the centurion was his practice run. His body was not the first body he raised. So the thing that you are overcoming right now, it's about developing a mastery. And when you get caught up and begin telling stories about how difficult it is or how challenging it is or whatever story you're telling yourself, you miss the point. You miss the whole point. The point is, can I show up better than I've shown up before? Can I be greater today than I was yesterday? For whatever it is that's got you challenged. If I ran from bill collectors yesterday, can I at least stand still and not run today? I might not be able to not get the fear quiet in my heart, but can I just not run today? Constance says, what you just described was my experience in understanding Roman numerals. Made no sense to me until I understood the formula, and you just gave us the key. Understanding that we are divine is our formula. Yes. Yes. FTX says, want to know what happened 2,000 years ago? Jesus broke the... Go ahead. Who are you, FTX? Want to know what happened 2,000 years ago? Jesus broke the 4-minute mile barrier on a spiritual or divine level. Yes. Phyllis says, the process did not stop at the resurrection. There was also the ascension. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Come on now. Go ahead. Teach that, Phyllis. Yes. Joe says, okay, I think I understand. Yes. I love that. Thank you, FTX. That's going to show up in a sermon. Oh, hi, Jared. Hi. Yes. Constance says, wow, Jesus' practice run and experiencing eternal life. There is no death. Life is eternal. Yes. So loving Jesus in a new spiritual dimension. Loving Jesus in a new spiritual dimension. When Jesus returned from the dead, put that in quotes, he proved more than the overcoming of his own life. When Jesus returned from the dead, he proved more than the overcoming of his own life. When he got up, he proved that you and I can get up. When he got up, he proved that you and I can get up. And if we love him, then we will get up. If we love him, hear that. If we love Jesus, we will get up. We will get up from the limited thinking that has held us back. We will get up from the belief that we are only human, because what I know for sure is that when you love someone deeply, it shows up in your behavior. Everything about you changes. And so the question is, how has your love for Jesus shown up in your life? What has changed in you? Are you still gazing at the cross, thinking about the resurrection, talking about how wonderful it is? Won't he do it? No, come, won't you do it? Won't you do it? Seriously. Because we're quick to say that. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? No, won't you do it? Won't you do it? Are you putting one foot in front of the other to follow Jesus into this new spiritual dimension beyond time and space? Have you accepted that what he proved with his life, you too can accomplish? See, before you reach a thing, reach for it, you got to know that it's possible for you. Without the belief that it can be so, you have nothing to pull you forward, nothing to make you reach beyond where you are. But in this new spiritual dimension, loving Jesus means reaching for our own overcoming. It means doing the spiritual work that will take us through our own cross and beyond. And so the love has got to change you. The Erykah Badu has a line in her song in Bag Lady. She says, "I bet your love will make it better. I bet your love will make it better." When you get that love inside of you, it will think here, let's put it on a personal level, because I know you get this. When you love your boo, don't you change? Did you, right? You do things differently. You show up differently. You showing up for life differently. You cooking and cleaning. You doing stuff that you said you would never do, because that's your boo, and you're right. Love changes you. And so when you say you love Christ, when you say you love Jesus, it's supposed to change you. It's supposed to change you at the very essence of your being. And so the question is, if it isn't changing you, are you willing to love? Are you willing to love? And if you're willing to, then how it will need to happen, or what will need to happen, will show up for you. But loving Christ, or loving Jesus in this new spiritual dimension, is about action. It's about personal transformation. And if there's no personal transformation, then you cannot call it love. If there's no personal transformation, you cannot call it love. Again, take it down to the personal so that you can get it. Think about when you met your significant other, the person that you said, I want to spend the rest of my life with them, what that did in you. One of the ways that you know that somebody loves somebody else is what they do, is how they change. And folks will tell you, but boy, her nose is wide open, or his nose is wide open, right? He loved her. Woo-wee, right? And we don't say that? Nobody says that? Is that just, okay. Maybe that's a Southern saying. But you know when somebody's in love. You know what that looks like. And you don't have to guess about it. You know what it looks like. And I'm saying, what does it look like when you really love Jesus? When you really love what he did, what he proved? And so loving Jesus in this new spiritual dimension is about prioritizing your spiritual development. It is about prioritizing your spiritual development. And so living in the new dimension, living in this new spiritual dimension, something he said, and it was one of those like, ouch, Eric. He said that we downgrade the resurrection. You get this right. We downgrade the resurrection when we treat it like a miracle of God. We downgrade the resurrection when we treat it as like a miracle of God, as opposed to the revelation of what's possible for humankind. Now, the average person, life is a series of actions that start with birth and end with death. And in between is some emotion, some eating, some drinking, some growing up, getting married, sleeping, worrying, hating, fighting, hoarding, getting disappointed, being betrayed, right? And then you die. But you know that there's something more to life, that life is God and life is boundless. And so then you must also know that nobody becomes a saint in his sleep. So now is the appointed hour for you to do your spiritual work. Recommit to your daily meditation and personal development. Reestablish your spiritual discipline if you have let it go. Take your eyes off the cross and do the work that will get you to your own cross. Make your spiritual development your highest priority and let nothing forsake it. That's the call on our life today. That's the challenge that Jesus puts before us if we're going to follow Jesus. I mean, you could say a lot of stuff. Andrea says, we say that, got her nose wide open, whipped. Yes, girl. Quintina says, there's an inner glow. It is a light that everyone can see or feel. There is a change. Phyllis says, we often overlook the authority that he gave us to do the supernatural. Yes. And that is why we doubt the power we have to do the impossible. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. And so it's here. The time is now. Eric has a sentence in, I think it's the first chapter, second chapter. He said, the time is rotten ripe. And if you've ever had some fruit that's rotten ripe, you know, like you need to eat it that moment, or else you need to go and throw it in the trash can because it's beyond. And he said, the time is rotten ripe for us to do this work. That we have to reach, stretch, do it, make the commitment, set your alarm, get up earlier, make it a non-negotiable. If you brush your teeth every day, you should meditate every day. You wouldn't walk out the house without brushing your teeth. Don't walk out the house without meditating. Pray every day. Be in some type of communion with God. Have a bare minimum, like, you know what, if I get to the end of the day and I haven't done whatever your thing is, I'm at least going to do 60 seconds of quiet. 60 seconds. That's it. I'm at least going to do that. I'm not going to let any day pass that I do not take at least 60 seconds or 120 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever your time is. But I got a bare minimum of what I absolutely give God. Now, when I can give more, I give more, but I don't let a day go by without spending that quiet time with the Father, because it's that important to me. It's that I don't get that busy. If I'm that busy, I probably need to double the time. If I think, boy, I don't have 2 minutes to pray, then I probably need to schedule 20, right? Because that's too busy. That's just flat out too busy. And so this is a call to action for us to recommit, to renew ourselves, to rededicate ourselves to the spiritual process, to not be afraid to come up a little higher, to not be afraid to continue to eat the spiritual food that will compel the metamorphosis process from the caterpillar into the butterfly. You don't have to make it happen. Just like you don't have to make a plant grow. All you got to do is continue to nurture the soil, and the sunlight and the water will do its own work on the seed. That if you will put your head to the grindstone, again, take your eye off the cross and put it on the spiritual work that's before you to do today. If you will do that, that you will reach the tipping point in your own life where you will bring forward your own cross, but you won't cower from it. You will know that I've been raising dead bodies since I was knee high to a bullfrog. And now that I'm this spiritual giant, bring the cross. Father, forgive them for what they have done. John, this is your mother. Like, you get what I'm saying? That you don't walk afraid. You don't have to run from anything, because for this moment I was saved. For this moment I was prepared. And so now it's time to do something. Because maybe you've been looking at the resurrection and not doing anything about it. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, am I ready to do the spiritual work that moves me through to my own cross? Am I ready to do the spiritual work? The cross won't come today. We're still doing 2 plus 2, right? So you don't have to worry. The cross is not showing up. Calculus is not going to be on the next exam. Just master 2 plus 2. And then take some time after this video to affirm your divinity and really sit with the idea that you are more than you appear to be. Just really sit with that idea. Don't even try to define it, but just sit with the idea that I am more than I appear to be. I don't know what I am, but I'm more than what I'm looking at. And finally, leave a comment on the YouTube video for this lesson. What was your biggest takeaway, and how can you use what you've heard? What was your biggest takeaway, and how can you use what you've heard? Questions? Thank you so much for tonight. I don't know if y'all are stunned silent or went to sleep. I'm okay with that because I'll teach the wall if I have to. Constance says, beautiful lesson, whole new way in seeing the resurrection. Yes, thank you guys. Phyllis says, step out in faith and practice, practice, practice. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great, great, great weekend. I love and I bless you. Next week, did Jesus teach reincarnation? So it don't get any easy. We just gonna dig in. Did Jesus teach reincarnation? That's chapter 17. Wonderful, wonderful. What was I gonna ask you guys? Oh, where do you want to go next? Got 2 more lessons in this. Where do you guys want to go next after this? So if I know we had the Joseph Benner book, we talked about the Untethered Soul, which I think is Michael Singer. I think, there's an older book by Genevieve Barron called Your Invisible Power, or it's a prosperity book. Oh, please hug him. Please hug him. Good. I'm so glad you're here, Jared. Just bless you and bless your family. Thank you so much for just you being you and demonstrating. And you got this. You got this. You got this information. I hear it. I hear it. Constance says, thank you for your love of teaching. We are blessed by it. Don't forget to give info about live coronation. Oh, right. So this is the thing. If you're on the Facebook page for Up Church, we're going to broadcast live via the Facebook page. For Up Church. Joe says you were going to send a list of books. Yes. That's exactly what I'm going to do, Joe. I'm going to pull a list from the previous thing and I will send that out. Let me write that down somewhere. Okay. Okay, great. I love you guys. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Have a blessed night and I will see you guys next week. Take care. Oh, and it'll be my birthday. Yeah. Birthday month. Okay.